What a special day it is here at Black Music Archive. I get the chance to speak with an icon, a history maker, the artist, the advocate, a pioneer for the ballroom community, the high priestess of love, the queen of the shameless plug, Rayceen Pendarvis of the legendary House of Pendarvis. Welcome to the channel.
Mm. Greetings and salutations, my beloved.
As I guess ballroom is becoming more commercialized or popular with, like the Renaissance or like the people having more interest in house music. Can we first talk about the importance of music to ballroom culture?
Music to ballroom culture is like life itself. In order to have a beat, you gotta have the right beat to come out. The right beat would make you feel it. It was all about the beats and the moments and the ensembles, depending on your category. It was certain legendary songs. I'm from old school ballroom. We set the tone. I'm from one of the original four houses that started it all. So, I mean, from that era, there were certain songs that always set the tone and set the pace for every ball. Every time you went to a ball, you knew you were going to hear Love is the Message, Love Hangover, and they use Love Hangover that do, all that was the right part for you to come out. You knew your outfit had to be over, you were over, and they usually always play that for legendary kids that hit the floor. So when you hit that, you were feeling it was something that every girl, every iconic ballroom figure, every time they hit the floor, when they would call them out. And then when they came up with legend stars and statements, that was something they used. That's a standard. And standards, it was, I came from the era when they used to use At the Copa by Barry Manilow. They used to walk balls at the Copa, and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, certain songs from that Philly era, disco classics, those were always songs that they used. Is It All Over My Face by Loose Joint? That was the legendary face. That was like one when you heard the face goddesses would come out, Butch Queens and Femme Queens, Octavia, Monica Allure, Tracy Ebony, Portia LaBeija, Carmen Extravaganza, Portia LaBeija, Candy LaBeija, when those girls hit the floor, it was something about that. You knew you was going to hear It's All Over My Face. As time and music changed, then he came out with Dirty Looks by Diana Ross, honey. Dirty Looks, when you heard that the girls would emote and lay all over the table and they would wash their face with washcloths or pull out the tissue, be given wash face, realness, So those were certain songs that you knew when you heard, oh my God. And then, of course, the voguing categories had certain songs, Ding Dada, the original by George Crass. But then, the newer kids know about Kevin Aviance, and Cunty. That was another one the kids was feeling. So certain songs required certain motions and certain beats. And then, of course, you have the legendary DJs, Larry Levan, who did stuff with Gwen Guthrie, Padlock, and it's ain't nothing going on but the Red, Peter Butter. And when they would remix those songs, the kids would use those for ballroom. Those were the songs that we used for the ballroom. Ballroom came from underground, then it became mainstream.
Would you say the implementation of these people's music helped some of these singers and musicians become gay icons?
Well, I think they were always gay icons, always, Patti LaBelle, Thelma Houston, Melba Moore, Martha Wash, Sylvester, those were songs that were gay anthems. And of course, those were always going to be played at the ball because those were icons who we loved, we supported and supported us. And the music, it's the writing, the lyrics. You think about I Was Born This Way, Carl Bean, the remix, because a lot of people don't know that was recorded before Carl Bean. Carl Bean remixed it and made it more clubbish, but it was actually recorded by another individual first. But, it didn't catch the fire that it caught once they remixed it. And once Carl Bean took it to church and just the flavor just completely changed. It's all about remixes. Certain songs, when the kids get a hold of them and remix them, like Love Break. Love Break was, oh my God. The first time I heard Love Break, Oh my God, it was amazing. Love Break, and they have so many versions of Love Break. They would mix it so it would play 25 minutes long. So the kids would be voguing and carrying on to Love Break like it was they was doing gymnastics. So it was amazing. So it was all about the beats, the rhythm, the moment. Music played a very important role in Ballroom. You had to know. You would go to the DJ and say, wait, let the other girls walk. Let them all go out. Yes, but don't play this record. Play this record when I hit the floor. So it's all about that. It was all about those moments. And then sometimes they would play classical music. The kids, they would mix a classical tune where they would come for grand prize, and the kids would give a night at the opera. They would pull out some Beethoven, some Bach, some Chopin. We are cultured children. Understand that the gays are cultured children. Those are some of the songs that they use. So, in jazz, you think about a lot of instrumental jazz stuff with Herbie Hancock, Roy Ayers. We had some good times with Roy Ayers in the ballroom floor. So I think about how a lot of those instrumental songs played an important role on, just ballroom itself.
Speaking of that, that's something I'm also always wanted to talk to a legend or a pioneer about. It seems like members in the LGBTQIA plus community before a certain point, I can't necessarily pinpoint when, but they are very cultured. Like they can tell you from theater to the opera to all these music genres. How did y'all become so cultured?
Well, it's all part of your breeding, how you grow up. If most people look at ballroom and think it's just one thing, think it's a bunch of kids who don't have two-parent homes, a certain kind of background. But many kids who came into ballroom, these kids are cultured, college educated. Many of them are fathers, many of them are mothers, many of them are teachers. Many have degrees and have careers prior or during ballroom. We use ballroom as a form of recreation, but of course it became a form of freedom and expression early on when the early pioneers, especially our trans women and our trans men who had to create safe spaces and safe havens for where we could not be celebrated in certain spaces or certain arenas. You might not have been a queen in your own world, but you were the queen of the ballroom. So that gave you a right to celebrate who you were. So ballroom celebrated the richness and the elements of the expression of joy in the LGBT community. And sometimes, unfortunately, when we choose to live our life authentically, sometimes certain parents may, or those parents may not quite understand who you are. They may not understand that Timmy wants to now be Tina, or Tina now wants to be Troy. And they might not understand that. And for whatever reason, sometimes many of our LGBTQIA community has to leave home and have to create a family elsewhere. And that's where the houses and the ballrooms, you have a mother, you have your father, you have your children. And these kids took a lot of kids in, fed them, clothed them, educated them, like Avis Pendarvis, my mother, who was one of the four founding mothers of ballroom. First thing she said to you want to walk a ball? What are you doing? What are your plans? What do you want to do with your life? Are you in school? If you weren't in school, she got you in school. If you weren't working, she made sure you had a job. She connected you with people and community that would uplift your dreams and the beliefs. If you wanted to be a fashion designer, she was well connected in that industry. So she would teach people how to sew, get them involved into programs where they could find a pathway to go to a school to become a designer. She also came from the theater world. For many who wanted to be actors and dancers, she had a connection. She had a way in. She had her hands in everything. That's what I loved about Avis. She spoke 10 different languages. She was just a plethora of a wealth of history, knowledge. If you knew it, if she didn't know it, she would find somebody. She would connect you with everybody. And people don't know Avis, because of the work that she did, and they had their first Love Ball. The Love Ball is now is now the Latex Ball. When Avis was one of the who worked with Susan Barsh, because they were in the theater world, they were connected, and they would pull, when they had the very first Love Ball, the panel was full of Broadway legends, Gwen Verney, Godfrey Holden, and models, Iman, so they were pulling all of these big names from people that they knew and worked with in the industry. And they allowed the ballroom royalty to sit with them and judge. And then the Love Ball was such an amazing event. It morphed into the Latex Ball. So, a lot of people don't know the history about that. You got to give honor and praise where it's due. People don't understand that because of all these things, it had to take these strong folks in our community, especially ballroom, and especially the trans community, fighting it and making a difference. People just see one thing and think, oh, all those people are, from a certain kind of background. No, they're not. These people come from a wealth of history, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of education. But now they look at it differently because now it's mainstream. Rihanna is backing balls, the House of Fenty, so I mean, they giving away money. $10,000 may have been given away in one night when we grew up, but now $10,000 is grand prize, meaning that they putting out $100,000 to $200,000 for one night of a ball, which is unbelievable. It's because of the foundation that was laid. Now you have the next generation that has taken it to film, television, and etc.
And that's a good segue into my next question, actually. So we spoke about how music is important to ballroom, but on the opposite of that, how has ballroom culture influenced music?
Well, the kids are always on the forefront of everything. So I remember when, turning around and Phyllis Hyman would be sitting in the ballroom. LL Cool J would be in the ballroom. They would bring, because they knew other kids in the industry, they would bring people that they work with, or people would come. And then Madonna, I remember meeting Madonna when she had black hair and she was a little young girl in the Sound Factory, hanging out with the House of Extravaganza. People think just voguing started with Madonna. When you saw that video, it did not. Liz Torres was one of the first to have the ballroom kids. Then it was Jody Watley. Then Queen Latifah, Diana Ross, Robin S. Think of all of that. It laid the foundation, those artists, those songs that are now staples in ballroom. But music, it went hand in hand. Music, ballroom, film, television, and runway. It all played a role.
I remember someone said they would, before they would release a song, they would take it to the clubs or to the ballrooms. And if it was a hit there, they knew they had something that the masses would like.
And they did. I mean, the underground, underground always set the tone. The underground clubs, the underground scene, ballroom. So many songs broke in the underground clubs and in ballroom before it became mainstream. So, you think about that. That's why so many artists became so big, because of the LGBT community. I mean, bring it to the children, and the children say, if we like it and we put our stamp of approval, you have now won.
So taking another step back, you mentioned about how it started as like an underground type of thing. So within every community and within every culture, there are their own sounds, there are their own dances and things like that. But on the topic of music, what sounds are distinct to the ballroom?
Beats, lyrics, divas who sing, it's all about, the ballroom. You want a singing girl to come behind, you want something powerful as you're walking out, so you want, or just something that sets the tone. It's all about that boom, 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 boom. That beat that just gets the kids to the floor, get them chanting. So it's a lot of times those kind of chanting songs, that kind of chant and get the crowd going. It all kind of mixed with the African, goes back to where we all begin, where it all begins, those African tribal beats, you think about that one song, It's Over for Me, and that has a tribal beat You know, darling, I love you, but can't you see it's over for me? It's over for me. And it has this boom, 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 boom. It's over. It's over. Darling, I love you. Darling, I love you. You know, and it has those strong beats behind it where it's like boom, boom, those kind of African tribal beats. So it's that ritual kind of stuff. I think it wakes up our spirit of the motherland and all of us, you know, and it's just something about those beats and the music and the whew.
Do you think beach tracks will make a comeback?
Well, you know, technically, I really feel like it's never gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's always evolved and moved to somewhere else. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
it's not in this one place, so you don't see it in this element of where these people are at this moment, doesn't mean it's not being played or it's not big somewhere else. It's just evolved into another stage of the evolution of how music is. You know, music goes through phases. You know, some people say disco died. You know, disco never died. These girls been working. They went overseas. You cannot change something that is classic and is on point from day one to now. You can play certain songs 40 years ago. You can play them when they went to ballroom. You can play them right now in the ballroom, and the kids still go up 40 years later. That speaks to the volume of how the song was written, how the song was produced, how it was all put together, and it made it timeless and it made it a classic.
For the kids that don't know, could you briefly explain what a beach track is?
I think it's self-explanatory. You know, if you can't catch it, then shame on you, honey. Shame if you. It speaks for itself, honey. I don't even have to explain it. You know, learn it and learn it well. In the immortal words of Doria and Corey.
So speaking of all these sounds and all these influences and cultures that make up ballroom, some of the most talented people, it's no secret, lie within ballroom, including yourself. And so how did that influence you creating the trio, the queens or gangsters with or gangster queens with attitudes or
Oh, child, oh my goodness. You know, of course, music is popping at a certain time. And it's all about jumping on what's hot at the moment, you know. So someone came to us, the three individuals. We were, you know, from the same house. We were definitely from the same house, but we all, you know, Michael was the tall, light-skinned one. He had a different kind of background. I had more of a musical background. Marshall came from a different kind of background. Marshall was in retail, but had a little church background. And we all kind of came together, which was a very unique experience within itself. You know, three different unique individuals, three different looks. We originally were called Gangster Queens with an Attitude because they said, oh, we need something catchy, something bold. And that was bold. Then we became GQA because sometimes we would go places, and of course, racism would and ignorance would rear its ugly head. So some folks didn't quite know where to kind of take Gangster Queens with an Attitude. So we became GQA. Then we end up changing it to the Queens. And then we end up changing it to 10th Avenue. About the time we got to 10th Avenue, I was really over the whole experience of the record industry because it had changed and we had a TLC experience, and then it was time to move on. But, you know, I tell people, you know the business. You know, I wrote the music, I copyrighted it, I own my own stuff. So when I came to the group, I already knew what I wanted to do. I already knew what I wanted to produce, what kind of the image and all of those things. But when you're dealing with producers and managers and PR people and record labels, people have visions of what you would look like. And you have to be very careful what you sign, because a lot of times people don't understand production deals. We had a production deal with Tommy Records that was in negotiation. Then we end up signing with Smack Records. Then both of the labels folded. But because the deal was not crafted for the artist, we weren't able to sign for 10 years. We lay dormant as a group. So we couldn't do anything because of what we signed, and people got to know what you signed. But I tell you, even on the downside of that experience, I got to work with people like Robin S., RuPaul, Allison Williams, and so many individuals in the industry that I could sit, I could pick their head, talk with them, and I learned the business side of the show business world. And what I learned from that experience is when one door closes, another door opens. So when I left the record recording industry, I went into another world, and it allowed me to work with artists like Patti LaBelle, Jennifer Holliday, Regina Bell, Martha Wash, Faith Evans, Little Mo, Shaka Khan. So I was able to be an MC and open up and do things on a national levels, international levels, travel, work cruise ships. So I was doing a whole lot of stuff, all because the ballroom was part of kind of showcasing and homing my skills, allowed me, and the record industry allowed me to just kind of springboard into the next phase of my life.
And as we have these conversations now about, like with Lil Nas or Santana or about what is masculine or what is gender or what is this and then, people think that this is new. And, I've had people, no, it's not. So it's just like, from your experience, being someone who helped pave the way for these uh, artists today to express themselves, what was your experience like in the group, like to go against the grain of what the construct of gender is?
Hmm. Well, I think there were so many people that laid the foundation for us to be who we were. I cannot say and give thanks enough to Sylvester, Jackie Shane, Liberace, Little Richard. They laid the foundation for me to be Rayceen when it came to walking in the industry, in the record industry. They laid the foundation for folks like myself. So, when because of who they were, allowed me to be who I was, so it was a very wonderful experience. I look at every experience, good and bad. I look at the joy, because some doors may not be open, but some doors were open before because of other people who walked before me. So, and when you're bold and you're free and you're yourself and you're authentic, people can't help but not respect that. You may not understand it or may not quite figure out where you want to place me, but if I walk indoors and I walk into a room and I walk and my light is bright and I'm kind and I'm generous and I walk in love, it disarms all the other things. And then it allows us to sit in spaces and begin to dialogue and begin to talk about the importance of how music changes things. Music is a teacher. Music allows folks to go into places that sometimes they won't let you go into. But the music, once you get there and once you win the people over, and once they talk and dialogue and talk about how the music makes them feel, especially when you're feeling bad, you can put on a song and feel good. So music is a teacher, it's a healer. Whatever that is for you, or whatever you want to go, or how you want to look at the world, music is universal. It's universal because it brings joy. So when you bring joy into a room, regardless of what you look like, because the messenger doesn't have a gender. Gender is not defined by my joy. My joy is what I bring. And the joy is me and the essence of love. And however that's presented through music, through the artistry of ballroom, or through my experience of just walking in the door, having a dialogue with people.
And speaking of spreading that joy to people, I came to know you first. Before learning about your history, I came to actually know you first because of your activism work. Could you just talk about the endeavors that you champion, but also how you use your music to connect and help other people?
I think it's important that activism is used as a tool. It's a form of liberation. how that looks for you. So I tend to, as an activist, walk into spaces, and when I have the opportunity, especially talking to people that are going through things. So I use music as a healing tool. You know, many of us deal with depression, folks, and we don't talk about it. But when we talk about music and what it does, you know, if you hear a song, I'm happy, I'm carefree, I'm gay, I was born this way. When you're thinking about why am I different? Why am this person? And why is it something about me that folks don't quite understand? But when you hear a song that resonates in the spirit of who you are, it gets you moving, it gets you going. So when folks are going through as an activist, I begin to come into a room. If it's seniors, I find music from their time and their era that relates us to feeling good. And then we talk about the messenger. The messenger is me. And I sometimes you have to be that messenger. And sometimes the message is more important than the messenger. I may not look like what you thought I was going to look like, but the message of love and sit down and healing is how I use music to inspire people. So, I always kind of like certain songs when I enter a room, when I host an event, I want a happy song that feels good. I put on some, you can't go wrong with a good old Aretha song. You got to put on a little Aretha song to get them going, honey. It instantly connects with people. It makes them feel good about a time when they were young, when they were happy, when they felt good. It brings back great memories. So you use music as a tool. So I use music as a way of educating people, and just lifting people up. So many times people will call me and they're going through. Somehow people think that, oh, you can pray things away. You can't always pray things away, baby. You got to get some help. You got to talk about some serious therapy, getting in there and talking to a therapist. And part of that therapy and that healing is music therapy. So then you put on songs, disco made everybody feel good. So, disco is it, baby. You put on, you know, gotta be real. Or you talk about empowerment. Music is empowerment for so many different groups. Don't leave me this way, honey. Thelma Houston, honey, or the Harold Melvin featured Teddy Pendergrass, just makes you feel good. Don't leave me this way. I can't survive. I can't stay alive. And it just, or I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, and it just makes you feel good. Certain songs just make you feel good. You can be in a place of darkness, but when you hear certain music, it just brings light. So I use music as a tool along with my activism. Get them through the door, make them feel good, and then hit them with a message.
So what's your song today?
What's my song? My go-to song?
Yeah,
Oh, child. It all depends. No, always one of Over and Over by Sylvester. Let No Man Put Us Under, my first choice. Those are two songs when I hear, I immediately get up. I get up and start twirling, and Mary J. Blige, she did a fabulous remake of Let No Man Put Us Under, So when I hear them songs, they just make me feel good. I hear Over and Over when I hear it in the ballroom. Sometimes I close my eyes and I think about Avis, Dorian, Pepper, Crystal, and so many have gone on. I think about all of those people and I just smile and I feel good because I remember them being in these moments of fabulous extravaganzas and what I loved about ballroom and music, how it all played hand in hand. I told a story when certain people hit the floor, it told a story. Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl, painted feathers in her hair, and that tells a story. And the girls would come out with these fabulous bird pieces and, glitter and sequins. And it was all about glamour. And these kids created this, and it came from such a creative time and creative people and creative spaces. And I think about all those creative people and just how they dared to be themselves in a time and sometimes in a world that would not let them be who they were, but the ballroom allowed them to be free.
What did she say in that song? Because I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, I'm an Aquarius. Yeah.
And can't no man resist.
In the world, yes. And the world can let go of this Aquarius. Do you think what I'm saying? Do you think where I'm coming from?
I have a couple songs. That's actually one of them. I'm like, oh, I feel a little spicy. You know?
It makes you feel spicy. That's what music does.
Yes. But and so that's actually a great way to wrap up this interview. But how can people find you and stay in contact and up to date with what you're doing?
Of course, you can follow me at rayceen.com. That's RAYCEEN.com. Please follow me on all forms of social media, Rayceen Pendarvis, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., etc. I'm everywhere, and YouTube. Follow us on our YouTube channel at Team Rayceen, and just see what we're doing. We have an amazing production manager, Czar, who holds things down. I always feel like Czar is our Charlie and we're his angels, and he holds everything together. And part of the angels are Krilios, Nikki, Yulin, Aaron, and so many others who volunteer their time. When I am just not just Rayceen by myself, I'm Rayceen with the entity that is a part of Team Rayceen. And I think about, you talk about music, and I cannot, without leaving you, talk about the importance of how the Latinx music and how salsa played a role in ballroom. I remember the kids coming out off of Cellular Cruz, Luna, Luna, if I'm mispronouncing her name, please forgive me, but she was one of those great, women in the Latin community that made salsa what it is today. She was actually before Lala Lupe. Lala Lupe was before Celia de Cruz. So because of those beats and the Afro-Cuban beats, we used to use that. When I talk about them beats, we don't talk about when you hear the kids voguing to, they call him Cuban beats. I'm the king of the rumba beats. Go boom shaka laka, boom shaka, boom shaka. And the kids be voguing to that. They took that song, which was an old song that they used to play back in a lot of those Cuban clubs in LA, or the Cuban clubs in New York and lower Manhattan, especially. In those places, in those little clubs, balls were held in places like the Savoy Ballroom, the Cotton Club. We were mainstream before mainstream. You think about, the kids had balls at the Apollo Theater, the Howard Theater, the Lincoln Theater. So, in different cities, and people, I want you to know the importance when ballroom started. It was an event. Ballrooms in each city were held 4 times a year in New York, Philly, Chicago, Detroit, and we traveled, to those different cities to compete in those different balls, because they weren't all like every week, and they weren't mainstream like they are today. They, it was something that you put on your calendar. You made sure you were there because it was like one of those events. But because now it's so big and it's become so international, it's like a ball every week, in a different city or a different country, So, the kids are doing what they're doing. So we talk about the importance, and because of the shoulders that so many of us stand on, ballroom is where it is today.
And that's a great way, a great note to end this one. So thank you so much,
Thank you.
Rayceen. I learned a lot, and just thank you. This really, really you really brightened up my day. Yeah.
Oh, I'm honored to be here, and I thank you for inviting me and just allowing me to share stories about who we are and how we are all connected on this journey.